Welcome to another video in the series of Freemasonry and Satanism. 61, part 11 of the Blue Lodge Freemasonry Handbook. I planned only to do 10, but it seems I'm going to be doing 12 and drawing the line there. And this is number 11, and the average is about 2 hours each, so that's going to be about 24 hours of investigating the Free Lodge Handbook of Freemasonry, the Blue Lodge, and associated supporting other books. And at the end of each video, the current events or document reviews, because it is becoming to me apparent, and hopefully to people who watch my videos and research other work on the internet and in the news, the Main Street news, the alternate media news, that these people are all powerful and there are some strange things going on behind the scenes, of which these people and others, other mystery schools, secret lodges, secret organizations, worldwide, United Nations, Jesuits, which, by the way, on the second half of this video, I've got some explosive material in my book review. So let me just read on. And what we were discussing on number 10 was the Mark Master's degree, which apparently is a 4th degree in some lodges. It's like, and they call it a lecture or a catechism, or basically it's a kind of a religion. And I'm also beginning to see and learn that these rituals that they take the candidate through blindfolded is in fact a type of hypnotism and mesmerizing somebody, putting them in a trance and maybe causing some kind of effect, demonic possession, control. And if you don't believe me, listen to this stuff I read here on the Mark Master's degree, The Secret Work. And on the previous chapter, we went over the Mark Master's degree and some of the symbols and the procedure, but apparently there's more to it after you pass that. So let's go on. I'm going to start out, as you know, I just do my highlighted sections. And so the Right Worshipful Master, rising, brethren, this lodge of Mark Master Masons has been called and opened for the purpose of advancing to the honorary degree of Mark Master Brother James Hunt, who has been duly elected to receive the same. If there be no objection, we will now proceed to confer the degree. No objection being made, he continues, there being none, it is so ordered. And the Right Worshipful Master, Brother Senior Deacon, you will ascertain if the candidate is in waiting. The Senior Deacon goes to the west side of the altar and salutes the Right Worshipful Master with the Dugard and sign. See page 13. He then repairs to the anteroom. So let's look at the Dugard sign just so we can continue to remind ourselves. So you got the Dugard sign and the penal sign. And the penal sign is, I guess, having your body cut in half. Let's see what it says here. So the Dugard sign is like this, and the penalty sign is drawing lines across your stomach. The penal for exposing the secret goings-on, as we discussed in the last section. All right, He then repairs to the anteroom, upon which the junior deacon gives 4 raps by 2s. Get my reading straight here. Senior Deacon, Right Worshipful Master, I find in waiting Brother James Hunt, who has been duly elected to take the Mark Master's degree. He then resumes his seat. It may be well to explain once for all that whenever anyone is retiring from the lodge, the junior deacon knocks upon the anteroom door and opens it, but when anyone is entering, the tiler knocks and opens the door. So between the lodge hall and the outside door to the building, there is a room called a waiting room or an anteroom, which a tiler is on guard with a sword so that nobody may eavesdrop or get into the lodge without permission. Anyways, Right Worshipful Master, Brother Secretary, has the candidate paid the required fee? If the fee has been paid or remitted when the candidate is a preacher, the Secretary replies, he has, Right Worshipful Master. And again, to move through this thing, I'm not reading everything. Just what I highlighted was to give you the gist of what's going on during the initiation into the lodge. The candidate is deprived of all money, coin, or paper. His coat is removed. Both sleeves are rolled up above the elbows, and an apron is put on him, which he wears as a fellow craft mason. The senior and junior deacons are similarly prepared, and each of these officers carries in his right hand an oblong stone, or resembles a stone, an oblong stone, or what resembles a stone, about 8 or 10 inches long, 4 or 5 inches wide. Got to get my brain and my eyes together here. And about 1 inch thick, having the representation of a square on that carried by the senior deacon, and a plum on the one borne by the junior deacon. These stones they grasp at the top in a natural way, between the thumb and the fingers, swinging them by their side at full arm's length. The candidate is given a keystone, much larger and heavier than carried by the deacons, on one side of which are the 2 concentric circles with the letters HT, W, SS, TKS. This keystone he is directed by the junior deacon to take to his right hand in the ordinary way of carrying a stone between the thumb and the 4 fingers. So the 3 people are in line, the senior deacon, junior deacon, and the candidate, each carrying a stone or a pretended stone, one with a plum, one with a square, and one with a keystone, as you can see here in the picture. All being ready, they enter the lodge room in single file, without knocking. The senior deacon first, the junior deacon next, and the candidate last, all represented in the accompanying figures, and proceed around the lodge to the stations of the overseers, as shown in the diagram. So they proceed around the lodge in this little map here around the inside of the lodge. So they're walking around with those stones and then stopping in front of these different officers, as shown in the diagram on page 20, making the first stop at the south gate, in front of the junior overseer, where the senior deacon gives 4 knocks in a manner already explained. Junior overseer, rising. Who comes here? Senior deacon, craftsmen from the quarries, with work for inspection. Present your work. The senior deacon swings his right hand, in which he carries the stone, once from the rear to the front, throwing it up level with his breast, the palm of the hand being thus turned upward and the arm extended. With his left hand he then catches the right hand of the stone, the left under the right, And of course, both palms are turned upward, and the stone is presented for inspection. So he's carrying the stone by the side, and he swings it up, and both hands have to show it to the inspector. The junior overseer takes the stone, and applying his trying square to its corners and sides, says, "This is good work, true work, square work. Pass to the senior overseer." The senior deacon moves on about 2 or 3 steps, and the junior deacon approaches the junior overseer. "Present your work," says the junior overseer. The junior deacon presents his oblong stone, just as the senior deacon did his. Being examined in the same way, the junior overseer says, "This is good work, true work, and square work. Pass on to the senior overseer." So the senior and junior deacons advance towards the west a few steps, and the candidate approaches the junior overseer, who says, "Present your work." The candidate swings his right arm, as he saw the deacons do, bringing up the keystone on a level with his breast, his left hand under his right, both palms upward, the large end of the keystone being in the uppermost, and the letters facing the junior overseer in their natural order, as illustrated in the accompanying figure. So the candidate has to present his stone. The junior overseer, taking the keystone, applies it to his little trying square, and finding it not to fit its sides and angles, he exclaims, junior overseer, "This is neither oblong nor square, neither has it the mark of any craft upon it. But owning to its singular form and beauty, I am unwilling to reject it, and will suffer it to pass to the senior overseer for further inspection." So they move over to the west gate. "Master overseer, who comes here?" Senior deacon, "Craftsmen from the quarries with work for inspection." Master overseer, "Present your work." The senior deacon presents his work in the manner already explained, and the master overseer, applying his square as the others did, exclaims, Master overseer, "This is good work, true work, square work, and has the proper mark upon it. Entitles you to wages." The senior deacon moves forward a short distance, and the junior deacon approaches. "Present your work," says the master overseer. The junior deacon presents it as before. The master overseer, "This is good work, true work, square work, and has the proper mark upon it. Entitles you to wages." The junior deacon moves on a short distance, and the candidate approaches the master overseer. The master overseer, "Present your work." The candidate presents the keystone, as already explained, and the master overseer, taking it, applies his trying square to its sides and angles, which of course does not fit them. He then pretends to examine it critically, and with apparent surprise, and says, Master overseer, "This is neither oblong nor square." So there you go, he says, "This is neither oblong nor square, neither has the mark of any of the craft upon it. Stand aside. Overseers assemble." Junior and senior overseers repair to the east gate, as the master overseer's place is termed. "Master overseer, brother junior overseer, did you permit this piece of work to pass your inspection?" Junior overseer, "I did, with the remark at the time that it was neither oblong nor square, but owning to its singular forming beauty, I was unwilling to reject it, and permitted it to pass to the senior overseer for further inspection. And I, for similar reasons, permitted it to pass unto you for final inspections. Brethren, you see it is neither oblong nor square. Square work only is such as we have orders to receive. neither has it the mark of any of the craft upon it known to me. Do you know that mark, pointing to the circles and letters with the keystone, or any use of such a stone? I do not, Junior Overseer. Neither do I, Master Overseer. Neither do I. What shall we do with it? Junior Overseer. Let us heave it over among the rubbish. Master and Senior Overseer together. Agreed. The Master and Senior Overseers now take the keystone between them, swinging it 4 times back and forth quite slowly. The 4th time they heave it over the left shoulder of the Overseer, where the Junior Overseer receives it and deposits it in any convenient place for future use. A little warm out here today in North Carolina in the mountains. All right. Usually near the Senior Warden's pedestal. Heaving the keystone over the left shoulder furnishes the heave over sign. Master Overseer to the candidate. Your work is rejected, and you are not entitled to wages. Senior Deacon leads candidate to a seat near the northeast corner of the lodge. Both deacons then repair to their respective places. Master Warden, 1 rap. Brother Junior Warden, what is the hour? Junior Warden rising. This is the 6th hour of the 6th day of the week. Right worshipful Master. This is the day and the hour when the craftsmen should repair to the apartments of the Senior Warden to receive their wages. You will give your orders accordingly. Remember, this is a ritual to get your Mark Master Mason's secret work, 4th degree. So here's the preparation room, anti-room, and the way they march around the lodge room. Just trying to give you the gist of what goes on during this ritual initiation. Junior Warden, 3 raps, and all the brethren rise. Craftsmen, you will assemble and repair to the apartments of the Senior Warden and receive your wages. The procession is formed as directed by the Master of Ceremonies. Or Marshal, the Master, Senior, and Junior Overseers, being in front. After them are the craftsmen or brethren, then the Senior Deacon, and last of all the candidate. In the meantime, a lattice window has been attached to the dais, or the platform, in which the Senior Warden sits, and there a Junior Deacon is stationed with a drawn sword raised above the lattice work. The procession moves east, south, and towards the west, as in the diagram on page 26. We just looked at that. Each craftsman, as he arrives at the Senior Warden's station, thrusting his right hand through the opening in the lattice work, as if to receive his wages. When the candidate comes up, he does the same, but not being yet instructed as to the proper manner of receiving wages. His right hand is seized by the Senior Warden and pulled further in. So he puts his hand into this hole in this lattice, and somebody on the other side pulls his hand further in, and behind there's another officer with a raised sword. Yikes. They're gonna cut his hand off? Alright, Senior Warden holding the candidate's hand. An imposter, strike off his right hand. This is during an initiation now. The Junior Deacon pulls down the sword as if to obey this order, as illustrated in the accompanying figure in the lattice window. Standing near the candidate, hold, he is no imposter. The Senior Deacon says that. So here's the picture, what they got here. That's enough to get you riled up. Let's see. He has attempted to draw wages when none were due him. Senior Warden. Senior Deacon says, I know him to be a fellow craft. I have wrought with him in the quarries. Can you vouch for him as a fellow craft? I can. Senior Warden. I will then release him upon the condition that you will take him to the right worshipful master for his decision. I will receive him upon the condition. That's a pretty interesting little show there they do. The candidate is released to the senior warden and is conducted by the senior deacon to the right worshipful master in the east. All the officers and brethren take their seats. Senior deacon, right worshipful master, this young craftsman has just been detected as an impostor at the apartments of the senior warden in attempting to draw wages when none were his due. But he was released upon condition that I present him before you for examination and decision. Master Overseer, right worshipful master, he has also been guilty of presenting work that would not pass inspection. Right worshipful master, addressing candidate, are you a fellow craft? The candidate, I am. Try me. Right worshipful master, give me the Dugard sign and the sign of fellow craft. The Dugard is like this, and the fellow craft is like this. The candidate gives the Dugard sign and the sign of fellow craft as in accompanying figures. Right worshipful master, you appear to be a fellow craft. Can it be possible that it was your intention to impose upon the craft? Do you know the penalty of an impostor? Candidate, I do not. Right worshipful master, that serves in some measure to mitigate the offense, and I will remit the penalty upon the condition that on the first hour of the first day of the week, when the craftsmen return to the quarries to resume their labors. Okay, let's see here. You will go with them in their labor until you shall be able to present such work as will pass the overseer's squares and will entitle you to wages. My brother, these ceremonies are intended for the purpose of impressing upon your mind, in the strongest possible manner, that a man should never, under any circumstances, attempt to receive that which is not his due, nor in any manner attempt to impose upon anyone, more especially a brother Mason, that should he do so, he is not only guilty of a great wrong, but also violates his solemn obligation. Be careful, my brother, that thou receivest no wages, here or elsewhere, that are not thy just due. For if thou doest, thou wrongest someone by taking that which in God's chancery belongeth him, whether that which thou takest be wealth, or rank, or influence, or reputation. The senior deacon now conducts the candidate to a seat, usually at this time on the south side of the lodge towards the junior deacon's place. Right worshipful master gives 3 raps. All rise. Brethren, the 6th day of the week has drawn to a close, and the holy Sabbath has begun. Let us attend reverently to the worship of the God of our fathers. All right. In 6 days, God created the heavens and the earth and rested upon the 7th day. The 7th, therefore, our ancient brethren consecrated as a day of rest for their labors, thereby enjoying frequent opportunities to contemplate the glorious works of the creation and adore their great Creator. The following hymn is also sung by all the brethren to the tune. Let's see if I can do this. It's called Old 100. Another 6 days' work is done. Another Sabbath is begun. Return, my soul, enjoy thy rest. Improve the day thy God hath blessed. The holy duties let the day, the holy pleasures pass away. How sweet a Sabbath thus to spend, in hope of one which neither shall end. Right Worshipful Master, one rap. Brother Junior Warden, what is the hour? Junior Warden rising. It is the first hour of the first day of the week. Right Worshipful Master, this is the day and the hour when the craftsmen should return to the quarries to resume their labors. You will give your orders accordingly. And there's a little star note here on the bottom. The God of our fathers. A gang of infidels who don't believe one word of what God has said, thus making a mockery of scriptures, turning the truth of God into a lie. The God of Masonry is Mahabon, a substitute, not the God of our Lord Jesus Christ. That's what it says here in the bottom of this thing. So their God is Mahabon. What is that? Moving on here, page 32, halfway through this book, I guess is a second book. Junior Warden, 3 raps, all rise. Craftsmen, you will return to the quarries and resume your labors. The Junior Deacon, this is a challenge to read this, right? Get you to kind of feel like you're in the lodge with this going on. Craftsmen, you will return to the quarries and resume your labors. The Junior Deacon conducts the candidate to the preparation room, where he instructs him how to bring up his work for inspection. Instead of a keystone, he is now handed one of the oblong stones that formerly carried by the senior deacon. This he is taught to take between his first fingers and thumb, the last 2 fingers being closed. The junior deacon takes his oblong stone in the same way. The candidate, being thus instructed, both re-enters the lodge room without ceremony and proceed at once to the junior overseer, to whom they present their work as before. The junior deacon first and the candidate next. So I guess he's going in for a second inspection for work. The junior overseer on examination pronounces it good work, true work, square work, and directs them to the senior overseer and he to the master overseer for a final examination. The master overseer in like manner declares it to be good work, true work, square work, and further tells the candidate that he is entitled to wages. The senior deacon, right worshipful master, this is the young fellowcraft who was ordered to the quarries, there to labor until he should be able to present such work as would pass the overseer's squares. He has done so. Right worshipful master, my brother, I congratulate you on having presented work that has passed inspection and entitled you to wages. But before you can be taught on how to receive them, you must return to the room whence you came and be duly prepared and received in due and ancient form. The junior deacon conducts the candidate to the preparation room. The right worshipful master now usually receives a recess, which is done as follows. Right worshipful master, 1 rap. The lodge will be at ease until the sound of the gavel in the east. So I think I'll leave it there, and we'll continue on with this in the last one, part 12. And then now we'll go over some book reviews, furthering our education onto the Freemasonries and other occultic Masonic organizations. There is a lot more here than meets the eye. Well, continuing on with my investigation of Freemasonry and the occult and the other associated secret mystery schools, I'm going to revisit Occult Theocracy, this book, which we've already looked at, by Lady Queenborough and Edith Starr Miller. Occult Theocracy. So I guess the first question is, what is theocracy? And let's talk a little bit about Lady Queenborough, Edith Starr Miller, and the date of this book. First published in 1933, reprinted in 1968, and reprinted again in January 1976 and 1980. This book makes no claim to literary merit. It is simply a work of research and documentation, giving evidence and facts which I trust will help the reader in drawing to his own conclusions. In the course of my researches as an international political investigator into the causes of social unrest, I have probed the depths of infamy which now surrounds not ours only, but also the next generation, whose right to lead a decent life should be as good as ours was, ours. As a woman of the world, I have witnessed things, the existence of which I did not suspect, and I have realized that, due to my protected position in life, they should never have been expected to have come to my knowledge. Let me tell every woman, however much protected, whether dairymaid or duchess, that the safeguards which she imagines to be thrown around her are but a mirage of the past. So I suspect this is all a warning to people. That's quite an opening. Probably find this book used online. It's pretty thick here. So my first question was, what is theocracy? So I went on Wikipedia on the internet, and I looked it up, and I printed out just the first page. You can do it too. And I shall read it and discuss it for a second. Theocracy. Theocracy is a form of government in which clergy have sovereignty over a territory. Clergy, that would be some kind of church or religion, have sovereignty over a territory, and official policy is either governed by officials regarded as divinely guided, or is pursuant to the doctrine of a particular religion or religious group. So the Freemasonic lodges, Rosicrucians, Illuminati, Zionism are forms of theocracy, which are worshiping, in my opinion, from my research, Lucifer, Satan. And they are sovereign over a territory, governing. So I guess it would be, instead of Christianity, a mixture of church and state, it's Satanism as a mixture of church and state, if in fact the Illuminati, Freemasonic lodges, Zionism, the United Nations, and the occult meditation room, and all this other secret mystery school groups, Rosicrucians, Kabbalah, witchcraft, meditation, Indian Buddha type yoga, not Christianity. So this other worshiping group of people, theocracy, where the religious people run the state also. Caesar Augustus as Jove incarnate. Picture of this guy here. Wish they have a picture like that of George Washington in Washington, D.C., and many pictures of the devil with the naked body and the drapery stuff. Just making a point here. The Roman emperor was before Constantine. That would be Constantine, who adopted the Christian religion and forced it upon the world, because his empire in Rome was dwindling because of the growth in Christianity coming from the knowledge of Jesus. And so the church was sinking, Christianity was increasing, so Constantine, 300 or 400 years after Christ, decided that the church would embrace Christianity, and then of course crusades and killing people who didn't follow the type of Christianity that the Caesar, hence turned Pope, forced on the world. And I grew up Roman Catholic, so I didn't know this as a kid, child, young man. Opinion in both later antiquity and later history, however, regards negatively emperors such as Caligula or Domitian, who assumed that dignity in life. By contrast, each pharaoh of Egypt, the pharaoh of Egypt, like the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, which is Horus, each pharaoh of Egypt as Horus incarnate. So the pharaohs in Egypt were Horus incarnate, and the all-seeing eye Horus is on the US dollar bill and the pyramid. Son of Amun-Ra, Osiris in death, and Osiris's wife was Isis, that they now say is a threat to the New York and might bring in some suitcase nuke bombs and nuke one of our cities. So all these secret mystery schools, high-level Masons, Illuminati, Zionism, Jesuits, witchcraft, Hollywood, Kabbalah, these are, in my opinion, the ones who are trying to bring about the New World Order, controlling the world right now, causing the sky spraying, jade helm, threatening stock market crashes, causing overthrows in the Middle East, all the murder and mayhem, all to bring about the New World Order. So it seems. Alright, so as in death, in other cultures, what's held to be a living God. So when these people who were pharaohs or Caesars thought that they were reincarnated Horus or Amun-Ra or Osiris, and then that would make them a living God. Synopsis: the theocracy is a form in which a deity is considered immediate authority. So they're going to try to bring us this new Antichrist, this entity, even maybe called some kind of alien. The word comes from the Greek words theos, God, and kreata, power, strength, which means the rule of God, theocracy. Remember, this is the religion of the Masonic lodges, Illuminati, Zionism, Rosicrucians, and so forth and so forth. And you're going to find out, apparently, the Jehovah Witnesses and the Mormons, and oh my God, it's crazy. In some religions, the king was regarded as the son of God. When religions was a holy book, it is used as a direct message from God. Alright, you can look up theocracy a little more for yourself. That's my little brief description. And now let's look at this book here, and I found a couple chapters that were interesting. Let's see here. In Fritz Springmeier's book, in the last number 10 part of this Freemasonry series number 61, we learned a lot about the Russells, and I'm probably going to continue that in number 12. Continue on with this Fritz Springmeier book. But in the meantime, I thought I would just look up some of these topics in theocracy, occult theocracy, secrets, witchcraft type of stuff. Those people that are also the form of a government, thinking they are divine beings, having all these free Blue Lodge, Freemasonic rituals, focusing on King Solomon and Israel, explaining all the chaos and anarchy, and the world attempting to be run by Zionism, and the United Nations under their control. After the failed League of Nations after World War I, the Second World War brought around the United Nations, and these elite theocratic satanic Lucifer worship religion type people who is seen to be reincarnated Horus and Amun-Ra, etc., are in charge of the world right now, trying to bring about a new world order. How's that for a long explanation? The Russellite teaching, see the Russellites here, I highlighted some stuff. I'm not reading everything, but we're going back to Charles Taze Russell that we read about in the Fritz Springmeier's book, who created the skull and bones of George Bush, who created the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower, and who apparently was affiliated with the Mormon Church and with Freemasons, Masonic lodges, Illuminati, one of the 13 Illuminati families that are in control of the world, with apparently the Rothschilds, which owns the banks and the Federal Reserve in the United States, and spending, according to my recent research, $726 billion a year for military budget. And so what they spend on the people in this country is a pittance compared to those $726 billion. And then they're charging all that and borrowing the money from China and say we owe all that money. They're trying to bring down the USA because of that great money we owe. Great amount of money that we had nothing to do with. These people did. The Russell teaching, drawing its own arbitrary conclusions and proclaiming them as final, this is one of the members of the Illuminati family, professes to prove from biblical sources that all Christian churches are evil and corrupt, that the time of the Gentiles ended in 1914. That would be the beginning of World War I. And that the Jews must henceforth reign supreme over the world. I know you got to see it for yourself. Pause it and look at it for yourself. Getting closer to the truth. Zionism, ruling the world from Mount Zion in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv area. It also elaborates an occult dogma alleged to be based on biblical precedents. It condemns the Roman Catholic Church, referring to Rome in true esoteric Masonic style as Babylon, and deposes the Pope and his entire hierarchy as agents of the Antichrist, who are doomed to extinction according to the familiar Masonic formulas of Albert Pike, Mazzini, and company. Remember, Albert Pike did Morals and Dogma, the Bible for the Freemasons. He wrote a letter to his Mazzini friend in Europe, dictating that 3 world wars would be necessary to accomplish the New World Order. The Protestant, Episcopal, and other Christian churches, which in Russell's graphic language are the harlot daughters of the Romish Church, have committed fornication, which term he interprets as meaning the union of church and state. Theocracy. So bitterly opposed by the Jews all over, in all countries. Well, the Jews now control Zionism Jews, that is, not the good Jews. If you look up Zionism in images, and you will see all the images of Jews protesting this turn to bad Jews who turn towards the reformed religion of Lucifer, satanic worship, Kabbalah, magic, have committed fornication, which term he interprets to meaning a union of church and state, so bitterly opposed by the Jews in all countries. Under the visible rulership of the ancient worthies, the Jewish Sanhedrin, those Gentiles who still believe in Christ will acknowledge his reign as an invisible one while submitting as Christians to all the hardships these Jewish lords might choose to put upon them. Did you just hear what I just said? That those who still believe in Christ, those Gentiles, non-Jews, acknowledge his reign as an invisible one while submitting as Christians to all the hardships these Jewish lords might choose to put upon them. So this Jade Helm and New World Order, and breaking America and crashing it, and good martial law and enslaving everybody, like in the movie Hunger Games or Divergent, it says right here that those Gentiles who still believe in Christ will acknowledge his reign as an invisible one while submitting as Christians to all the hardships these Jewish lords might choose to put upon them. I remember I did read that thing from Benjamin Netanyahu where he says the United States is a golden calf to be fleeced again and again and again, and that Israel and the Jews hate Americans, and we will be punished for not submitting to slavery. Benjamin Netanyahu at Fink's Bar. I read that in previous videos. Look it up. Don't believe me. The publication of the International Bible Students Association are interesting staples of political propaganda and seem well calculated to suppress possible instincts of revolt among such members of the Christian community as might object to the role allotted to them under the Jewish superstate. The present head of this movement is John Rutherford. I heard a term watching a video yesterday that was pretty interesting on Reese, he alternate news internet station, Reese. He has a talk show, talking to some guy over there, Tim Rifat in England. And Tim Rifat referred to England, the UK, as the Jewish occupied country. And I thought about it. I said, oh my God, the United States is Jewish occupied. They control everything, as Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said in a heated argument in his Congress, don't worry about America, we control America. So we're Israeli occupied by the people who want to rule the world in the form of Zionism and have all these Masonic lodges, Rosicrucians, and in cahoots with the Black Pope and the Jesuits and the banksters and Masonic lodges in China and Japan and Russia. This seems like a lot of harsh stuff I'm saying. I think with all the documentation I've been reading and showing people, I'm not trying to say believe Rick. I'm going over the books. So let's talk about something else I found in this book. Co-Masonry. You see, in Masonic lodges, they do not allow women. But apparently, they have something called Co-Masonry, which is Masonic lodges for women. Ancient and accepted Scottish rites. Sovereign Grand Master elected 1929. The very illustrious Brother Lucian Levi, 33 degree, founded in 1892. We quote the following from a pamphlet issued under the sanction of the Deputy of the Supreme Council of Universal Co-Masonry for Great Britain and its dependencies by the Great Secretary of said jurisdiction. Remember, this is 1892. None of this stuff I keep saying started yesterday. So I just highlighted some simple stuff. So I'll read that. Annie Besant was created Vice President, Grand Master of the Supreme Council and Deputy of Great Britain and its dependencies. Annie Besant was the theological or created the Theophilosophical Society. We've gone over this. Madame Blavatsky. People who learned how to do magic. Materialization. Who started the Theosophical Society. Number 8 here on this chart. Which was basically bringing all this occult knowledge from India and China to the world. The teacup phenomenon, the occult world, the laying on of the hands. Anyways, Madame Blavatsky from Russia was the one who initiated this in the 1880s. And then when she passed on, it went to the reappearance of the Christ book, Alice Bailey, who became the next leader. The reappearance of the Christ, Alice Bailey. And it certainly looks like somebody put a little cross there of blood on this book. I get these books on used books online. Somebody used this as a teaching book. The reappearance of the Christ, which I like to point out again and again, was done by Lucas Publishing Company, which is formerly Lucifer Trust. And there is some stuff here I want to go over briefly, and Madame Blavatsky's. But those were Blavatsky and then Alice Bailey, and then the third leader of these groups was Anne Besant, who was created the Vice President Grand Master of the Supreme Council and Deputy for Great Britain. So the co-Masonry Women's Lodge groups, the Theosophical Societies, Lucifer Worship was the publisher of the book, The Reappearance of the Christ. It says Lucas Trust here, and if you go on YouTube, Internet, Wikipedia, you will see Lucas Trust was formerly Lucifer Trust, started by these women, and now this Anne Besant, one of them is one of the Grand Masters of a Masonic Lodge, co-Masonry. Much of the real information bearing upon possession of women in Masonry has been omitted by Masonic writers, and the reader will be well advised to refer to it in Volume 1. In The Hidden Life of Freemasonry, page 91, C.W. Ledbetter, another occult witchcraft type guy, 33 Degrees Masonry, gives us the following cryptic description of the preparation of the candidate for initiation. So you got a clear connection here. In plain English, the foregoing would read, before his admission, this is their initiation in co-Masonry. Before his admission, he is divested of all metals and valuables and is hoodwinked, just like the Blue Lodge Masonic book. Has his right arm and left breast and left bare knee, and his right heel shipshod, one shoe off, I guess, with no heel. The candidate thus prepared is saturated with magnetic energy. You gotta listen to this. During the ensuing ceremony, from which consequently he or she issues already under hypnotic influence. So the whole initiation process, blindfolding them and doing all that crazy stuff, issues under already hypnotic influence. These hypnotic bonds are further strengthened during the ensuing ceremonies of apprentice and master mason, which, however, in this order, according to Mr. Ledbetter, descriptions of elementals, that would be interdimensional beings, ghosts, spirits when you leave your body, undines, I guess that's another type of that stuff, or other spirits, seem to emulate very closely the phenomenon of the spiritualist seance room. So when you have a seance and you bring a spirit into the room, which with Anne Besant, the leader of the Theosophical Society, and Alice Bailey, the reappearance of the Christ. Remember, Christ means anointed one, and it doesn't say Jesus there. So the hypnotic bonds during this Blue Lodge or Masonic initiation, the hypnotic bonds are further strengthened during the ensuing ceremonies of apprentice and master mason, which, however, in this order, according to Mr. Ledbetter's description of elementals, undines, and other spirits, seem to emulate very closely the phenomenon of the spiritualist seance room. After attainment by the candidate to the third degree, the Kundalini, this is, again, the New Age and the demonic spiritual word communication, that's what I say. You don't know who you're talking to when you're talking to these entities that appear out of nowhere, which they say these aliens do, and they've seen people, lights appear out of nowhere and draw the crop circles. The Kundalini is supposed to be fully developed. So that was just 2 brief pages on co-Masonry, with some pretty explosive information in it. Then I found another one here that was blowing me away, because in a lot of cities we all hear about the Knights of Columbus. Founded in 1882. You're not going to believe this. These organizations get created, and they're created by rich, powerful people who lead your communities, doing occult, satanic ceremonies in the background, so it seems. The Knights of Columbus, in the name of a Roman Catholic organization founded in 1882. Father P. McGivern of New Haven, Connecticut. Oh my Lord, isn't that over where there's Sandy Hook? shooting, and there's supposed to be a lot of occultism in that area of Connecticut. Skull and Bones is there in Hartford. From the Roman Catholic paper La Croix of Paris, in the number dated December 20th, 1913, we gather that at that date the Knights of Columbus wielded an immense power in which public authorities had to reckon. Alright, continuing on. So the public authorities had to reckon with the immense power of the Knights of Columbus. Their number then was acknowledged to be more than 300,000. The order had 4 degrees and was headed by a Grand Master, 6 Pro-Grand Masters, and a General Secretary. There's more to these organizations than people know. The territory of the United States was divided into 6 provinces. Each province administered by one of the 6 Pro-Grand Masters. The Vertile, I guess a newspaper in Quebec, a Canadian paper in August 13th, 1913, put the number of the councils at 1,630. The Order of the Knights of Columbus was the cause for much perturbation in the Roman Catholic Church. When, however, its activities took on the appearance of a Masonic society, this is the Knights of Columbus, with initiation, rituals, and symbolism and secret oaths, many among the Catholic clergy became alarmed. I don't know if this material is alarming anybody that watches my videos, but it's alarming to me to see the vast scope of this stuff. Their fears were not allayed when it was known that the leaders of the Knights of Columbus were having fraternal exchanges of all kinds with the Oddfellows, the Templars, and other Masonic bodies. The climax was reached when it was rumored that in Rome, the Knights of Columbus had petitioned the Pope to allow their members to become, at least in the United States, regular Masons. The Knights of Columbus, like the Oddfellows, formed lodges of adoption in 1913, women being enrolled under the caption of Daughters of Isabella. In 1913, the number of the courts was over 200, and the membership of the Daughters of Isabella over 200,000. Like the Society of Oddfellows, in similarity to the OTO of the Rosicrucians, the Knights of Columbus hold much power over the property and various interests of their members. This sounds like a Jehovah's Witness Mormon type thing. Due to their efforts in the direction of establishing a universal religion and an interconfessional. Universal religion, New World Order. Although the Knights of Columbus and the Daughters of Isabella have extended their ramifications into the United Kingdom, it is in the United States that their strength mainly resides. They are far more a political entity with subversive tendencies than a religious body. Oh my God. Alright, so let's, one more thing I wanted to go over here. Something called Christian Science. Founded in 1883. Get this book. I've just touched the surface here. Having suffered greatly all her life from neuroticism and hysteria. This would be Mary Baker Eddy, founder of the Christian Science. She developed mediumship at an early age, spiritualistic sessions further revealed her psychic gifts. Malicious animal magnetism, familiarly referred to by her students as MAM. So she created the Christian Science and was into psychic gifts. At the age of 22, she married George Washington Grover, a Freemason and Odd Fellow, who took her to Charleston, South Carolina. 6 months later, however, he contracted yellow fever while at Wilmington, where he died at June 1844. On October 1862, she applied for medical assistance to the Pinellas Parkhurst Quimby, 1866, a healer who had many marvelous cures to his credit. Governing the use of hypnosis, mesmerism, and suggestion, it is claimed that she derived her system from him. In 1881, she founded the Massachusetts Metaphysical College in Boston, and 2 years later, with the movement was well established, started publishing the Christian Science Journal. In June 13, 1888, the National Christian Science Association held its second annual meeting at Central Music Hall, Chicago. This had been organized as well as advertised by George B. Day, pastor of the First Church of Christ Scientist, Chicago, and the speech delivered by Mrs. Eddy on the second day of this session was acclaimed by her 4,000 listeners as an inspired oration. In view of the extraordinary pitch of the enthusiasm attained by her audience, knowing the practice of charging, this is occultic stuff, magic, public rooms or halls, one is led to ask oneself the question as to whether the assembly hall had been specially charged for that particular meeting. And Hitler apparently had that great ability to charge people. And apparently Obama was trained in that, and a lot of these politicians. Whether Miss Eddy herself, like the Sibyllus of ancient times, was also inspired by outside hypnotic influence is another hypothesis to conjure with. From then on, Mrs. Eddy's religious future was assured. Under her leadership, suggestion became indeed the foundation of the religion, a religion in which psychic force, operating under suggestion, and accomplishes definite physical results. And this is what I feel is going on in the United States right now with TV and radio waves and all that. They say 85% of Americans are under some kind of hypnotic zombie state, and they're even making TV shows and movies about it, making fun of something that seems to be true. You try to talk to people about certain things these days, and they will tune out and scream at you and tell you to shut up, like they've been pre-programmed and they can't have their program altered. Mrs. Eddy's acquaintance with Mr. Augustus Stetson. It was a meeting in a fashionable home on Monument Hill in Charleston that she first met Augustus Stevens. In 1884, she, Mrs. Stevens, had been born of old Puritan stock at Waldoboro, Maine, about 1842. In after life, she shrouded her past in mystery, refused to tell her age, and the town records were eventually burned. Sounds like Obama's birth certificate. Alright, she had an instinctive interest in Oriental philosophies. In these philosophical affirmations and denial play an important role, and a pantheistic God is postulated, a God who is the universe, whose mind is all, and in whose mind matter, like force, is but one manifestation or expression in the midst of many. This is the religion of the Satanists and Lucifer and New Age stuff. One can almost describe this system as emerging clearly out of the realm of occultism. See, I just said that. A kind of suggestion and auto-suggestion, hypnotism, that a lot of people are under now from the nightly news and the TVs, whereby practical beneficial results may be induced in a patient by the application of certain occult laws to their personal medical requirements. Miss Eddy's dogma is summed up by Hudson in the following words: matter has no existence. Our bodies are composed of matter. Therefore, our bodies have no existence. We've got some crazy folks running our world, I keep saying. It follows, of course, that disease cannot exist in a non-existent body. While admitting the efficacy of Mrs. Eddy's use of the force of a beneficial animal magnetism, that her personal fear of the action of malicious animal magnetism, so derided by her theological adversaries, is logical and founded. And these people are into the occult, and we watch the halftime shows on football and the Olympic London grand opening and the Grammys and all this stuff. You can see the satanic shows, which probably have a hypnotic effect on people. All that crazy stuff, the movies, Hunger Games, Divergent, it's all mind control. Controlled by the people who control our world, the Zionists, Illuminati, banksters, Jesuits, Kabbalahs, Freemasons, witchcraft. And they put up the Georgia USA Guidestones, and they want to rid the planet of 90% of the people. They prosper and live on, and we all die. We're not into witchcraft. While admitting the efficacy of Mrs. Eddy's use of the beneficial force, these forces operate on sound scientific lines. And those who can use the power of suggestion, they do this with computers, TV now. They say TVs are watching you. Cell phones, programming your mind, certain frequencies. Power of suggestion to gain ascendancy over a sick person, may use it again later for other motives. The danger of such misapplication is not one to be disregarded. In calling in a healer, whatever Miss Eddy's detractors may say, the danger is real, and every student of the occult knows it. The movement has become popular and has a following among people of wealth. There you go, the elites, who seem to become the easy prey of occultists and charlatans. The following extract from the Daily Telegraph of December 18, 1930 illustrates this. The warning against the dangers of hypnotism in public have been issued by the Academy of Medicine as the result of an investigation. Sorry about the phone call. Gotta do my business sometimes. Public experiments in hypnotism should be stopped. The Academy declares that such demonstrations are bound to have a harmful influence. I think the Black Op program is being done in secret, which we will go over in future videos of mine. It's pretty malicious, pretty scary. What they can do with frequencies and beams now, and stop people's hearts and kill them, and microwaving HARP systems and cell phone towers and satellite in space beaming out energies. Another grave criticism is that they may lead young people to believe that the exercise of hypnotism may enable them to influence the will and actions of those with whom they come in contact. A resolution passed by the Academy recommends the forbidding of such displays throughout the country. Well, there you have it. There's more here to go. There was one thing here I remembered here. That I wanted to go over. Alright, I wanted to read a little bit from this book. The Reappearance of the Christ, which again, as I said before, was published by Lucas Publishing, formerly Lucifer Trust, by Alice Bailey, who was the followed Madame Blavatsky in Theosophitic religion that they learned over there in India and China, Buddhism and all that. So here we go, page 124. The ground is being prepared at this time for the great restoration which the Christ will engineer. The world religions, including Christianity, the Masonry of today, are today before the judgment seat of humanity's critical mind. The world has gone forth almost unanimously that both of them have failed in their divinely assigned task. It is realized everywhere that new life must be poured in, but this will take a new vision and a new approach to the living conditions, and this only the appearance of the Christ can teach. Remember, Christ is the anointed one. It does not say Jesus here. And bring this about. As an ancient scripture says, listen up. That which has been a mystery shall no longer be so. That which has been veiled will be revealed. That which has been withdrawn will emerge into the light, and will then enhance that light, and all men will see, and together will rejoice. The time will come when destruction will have wrought its benefit work. So they're going to destroy everything to bring about a benefit work, like the phoenix rising, to burn it down so it rises again. Then men, through suffering, remember they said that the Israelis, the Jews, want to take over the world, and men have to learn how to suffer with their work, will seek that which they have discarded. In vain pursuit, they sought that which was near at hand and easy attainment. Possessed, they found that it proved an agency of death, yet at the time they sought for life, not death. And the Christ will bring them life and life abundantly. There is much talk these days concerning the mysteries of initiation. See, it's all relevant here to the Freemasonic handbook and all that. Every country is full of spurious teachers, teaching the so-called mysteries, offering spurious initiations, usually at a cost and with a diploma, and misleading the people. Christ himself taught that just before he came, this state of affairs will be found, and that everywhere the false and spurious would be proclaiming themselves. All this is, however, but indicative of his coming. The counterfeit ever guarantees the truth. The talk, the discussions, the silly chain-making, the pseudo occultism, and the futile efforts to take the initiation. That undistinguished phrase which ignorant theosophitical teachers have coined to express a deep spiritual experience, have been distinctive of the esoteric teachings ever since its modern inception in 1875 by H.P. Blavatsky. You see why I get these books connected. Alice Bailey is referencing H.P. Blavatsky because she was an H.P. Blavatsky follower. Brought to the attention of the Western world the fact, so they brought it from the Orient. Remember, Israel was in the Orient, the East Orient. And they have an Orient Masonic Lodge too. I always wondered about that till I realized that Israel was in the Orient. So H.P. Blavatsky brought to the attention of the Western world, that would be the United States and Europe, from the East, which would have been India, China, Buddhism, the different kind of religion, the fact that the great disciples and masters of the wisdom were present. And remember, Albert Pike, Madame Blavatsky, her Secret Doctrine, Morals and Dogma, those great big thick books. They got all the information from some interdimensional being they call a master while they went into meditative states. Were present on the earth, obedient to the guidance of Christ. Later, she deeply regretted doing this, as some of her papers issued to her esoteric section proclaimed. Yet what she did was all part of a great plan and was no mistake. The interpretations and the excited reactions of the theosophists of her time were a mistake which they have not yet acknowledged. The simple reaction was aided and helped by the inquisitive nature of humanity itself, as well by the aspiration which was undoubtedly aroused. Men also, full of cupidity and commercial greed, exploited the theme and are still doing so. I just thought of taking a peek at some of this stuff, which I will revisit again these theosophists, which is this religion, it seems, of the demonic world, mixed in with running our government right now, maybe fully explain all the craziness we are experiencing. I thought I would just read a little bit from Helena Blavatsky's book, Medium and Magician. Alright, it says here, free love in the 19th century America was also the rule of several cults. The most famous was the Perfectionist of Oneida, a community of several hundred persons who in the state of New York, run by John Humphrey Noyes, who advocated coitus reservus as a means of birth control. The new commandment is that we love one another, wrote Noyes, and that not by pairs but in mass. So he's saying it's a commandment for orgies. We are required to love one another fervently. The fashion of the world forbids a man and a woman who are otherwise appropriated to love one another fervently, but if they obey Christ, not Jesus here, they must do this. Crazy. Andrew Jackson Davis, who was far from being highly respected by everyone, even in spiritual circles, on account of his love affair with married women, would have been the last person in America to have been shocked by hearing of free love. So he was an adulterer. It's his commandment, number 7. Adultery is forbidden. It's like stealing and murder. But we remember it's the Luciferic religion, the opposite of the 10 Commandments, are their commandments, which Aleister Crowley advocates, do as thou wilt. So if the 10 Commandments says no adultery, and you're a Luciferian Satanist, then to prove your loyalty to Lucifer, you have to commit adultery. HPB, Helen Blavatsky, had seen more of the Eddy brothers and the materializations that had Dr. Beard had seen more of the Eddy brothers and the materialization. So the magic they could actually materialize stuff. And she promptly wrote a spiritual reply. I do not know Dr. Beard personally, nor do I care to know how far he is entitled to wear the laurels of his profession as an MD. But what I do know is that he may never hope to equal, much less to surpass, such men as Savy and Saviance, as Crookes, Wallace, or even Flammarion, the French astronomer, all of whom have devoted years to the investigation of spiritualism. All of them came to the conclusion that, supposing even the well-known phenomenon of the materialization of spirits, bringing forth demons into this reality, which, by the way, King Solomon had a magic ring with the 6-pointed star, which was magic, and he could call forth demons. King Solomon of the temple, they want to rebuild in Israel, Jerusalem right now. And those demons, and that was the source of his power. So you wonder if the satanic and Luciferian Freemasonic lodges, Rosicrucians, and Columbus organizations, Knights of Columbus, and Coal Masonry Women's Group, are they all into magic? Like the Bohemian Grove, where they have a big fire and they throw a baby into it, dressed in long robes where they ship in naked men and they call it the cremation of care. Or the Eurovision, like the American Idol program, where Conchita Wurst wins the contest, singing the song Phoenix Rising with the words "You Can't Stop Us." Her face dressed like Jesus with the beard and the body in a silky dress. Look this stuff up. Wurst means sausage, Conchita means a female part. You talk about insanity in our world. All of them came to the conclusion that, supposing even the well-known phenomenon of the materialization of spirits did not prove the identity of the persons whom they purported to represent, it was not, at all events, the work of mortal hands. Still less, it was a fraud. So it wasn't a fraud. Got a little more here just to show you where this all comes from. Her father, Colonel, this is Helena Blavatsky. Her father, Colonel Han of Russia now, was the governor, and her mother was the daughter of General Fedade, and that she was the granddaughter of Principal Dolgoruth. Okay. So Helena Blavatsky comes from some interesting stock, DNA. When I was 16 years of age, they married me to Mr. Blavatsky. He was the governor of Yerevan. He was 73, and I was 16. But mind, I don't blame anybody. Not my friends, not in the least. However, at the end of a year we separated. His habits were not agreeable to me. I went first to all of Egypt, spent 3 nights in the Pyramid of Klops. Oh, I had a marvelous experience. So she spent 3 nights in one of those pyramids. And a lot of people who say they went to Egypt and spent some time in those pyramids come out of there with increased psychic abilities. Then I went to Athens, Palestine, Syria, Arabia, and back to Paris, and made the acquaintance of Daniel Home, a spiritualist. Home converted me to spiritualism. Daniel Douglas Home, whom Charles Dickens called a ruffian and a scoundrel, was the most celebrated spiritualist in the world. He had a gift of levitation and for producing other phenomena. This prompted the reporter to ask Kalanita, "Did you ever see any of his levitations?" "Yes. Yes, I have. I seen Home carried out of a 4-story window and let down very gently to the ground and put into his carriage. After this, I returned to Russia." Helena Blavatsky then spoke a few words about spiritualist phenomena at the Russian court. As I was returning from the Piraeus of Nepai, when we were off to Spezia, I'm sure I'm saying these names wrong, the boat with which I was making the voyage, the Emina, blew up, and 400 persons, only 17 were saved. I was one of the fortunate ones. As I laid on my back, I saw limbs, heads, and trunks all following around me. This was on 21 June 1871. So I'm just connecting all this stuff that ties in together the occult theocracy, where the occult religion, apparently paganism and Luciferian and Satanism, is part of the lodges and the co-lodges and the Rosicrucians, Knights of Columbus, Zionism, Jesuits, and there is a thick book, a half an inch thick, just listing the names of all these different groups all over the world. And that theocracy, as we learned there, are some kind of religion hooked up with the government. So these groups are generally controlled and occupied by the wealthy people of the communities worldwide, nationwide. And the goings-on behind the secrets enable them to get the money and power and all the things they're doing. And those of us not in the loop and ignorant of these things don't have a chance. And as Benjamin Netanyahu says, America is a golden calf to be fleeced again and again and again. And apparently all these organizations or cult schools in cahoots with the Zionist Jewish nation to do the New World Order, New Age. This is my conclusions here. And the people are ignorant about all of it. Many people. Some people are waking up. There's a Freeman fly on the internet. Look up Freeman Occultism. He's got freeman.com. William Cooper, he's got many videos, stuff on InfoWars. There's all kinds of stuff you can look up, websites, videos on YouTube about all this occultism, Masonism, Satanism, Bohemian Grove. Alex Jones sneaking in there, videoing the whole thing. Big, gigantic owl with a fire in the belly. They throw a baby in there. And when questioned on this, they said it was an effigy, like a baby doll. My thinking is, what the heck does it matter? What are you doing throwing a baby in a fire? And how do we really know it was a fake baby? And they called it a cremation of care. And many of the presidents were photographed to be in at Bohemian Grove. So all this occultism, Masonic schools, my series of videos here, Freemasonry and Satanism, which has a varied amount of different topics, remote viewing, UFO aliens, Palladians, all these different things. If these people control the world, then they're responsible for all these goings-on, World War I, World War II, war between the states, nuclear explosions, and 9/11, Oklahoma City bombing, Sandy Hook, Boston bombing, overthrowing all the countries in the Middle East, all the death and murder in Africa, death and murder in South America, putting all the Illuminati heads of families in charge of these countries and states and towns and factories and businesses, and working against the citizens of the world. And even putting up the USA Georgia Guidestones, where they say they want to reduce the population. Obama said they want to do it. The RAND Corporation says they want to do it. Deagle.com that I showed you says they want to do it. They even have the statistics on their front page. Look it up. Where they say their population is now 217 million, and they want 66 million in 10 years from now, 2015. And all the countries of the world have seriously reduced populations. And they got Jade Helm going on. They give us threats of pole shift. They give us threats of tsunamis, Ebola. 30 million chickens and turkeys have died recently. Fish are all dying from Fukushima. In Florida, 10, 20 years ago, they had something called a canker scare for the citrus trees, and they had to go in everybody's backyard and destroy citrus trees that were producing wonderful fruit. Grapefruit, oranges. It was fantastic. You'd go out in your yard and eat all the fruit you want. And it was all for free, so I suspect that the canker thing was a big lie. Like they don't want anybody to be able to get any resources for free. You can't control the people if they can eat and think for themselves. Economic crashing the stock market. In England right now, they're talking about making it illegal to have cash, and they want to do that over here. It's all tied together. That's why I call it Freemasonry and Satanism. And I'll do a couple press release, current event documents right now after this. And just to show that these people are in charge, and these things that are happening, they're doing. That's my point. That's my belief from my review. And it is America still, and we still have free speech, and we can read books and come to our own conclusions so far. Because I think they plan on eliminating that. And Obama mentioned in the news yesterday, the day before, that they want to come up with a new amendment and to take away the right to bear arms. That means they want to do something bad to all the people, and they don't want them armed. And anybody who doesn't go along with the gay agenda is a hater, and Christianity will be considered hate speech, and they'll probably confiscate Bibles even. They got FEMA camps, hollow point bullets, Jade Helm going on, and it's all so crazy I keep rambling on. Got a couple documents here. I want to be brief. You can look them up, but I think it's important to know they exist and what's going on and what's being said in our world. The Johnson Amendment and the Agenda to Silence Christians, May 25th, 2015, by Dave Floreza. Look up the document. It says here, under the First Amendment, the pastor has the right to determine what is said from the pulpit, not the IRS. So they use all these tricks. Remember who runs our society. It's the people that are in control of all these Masonic secret mystery school lodges under many names like the Knights of Columbus we just learned. They're vast. Like I said, there's a book this thick naming all these groups. That people are on the inside are running our world and passing legislation, and representative and senators are basically dynasties of families. You know, like Michael Douglas is a movie star because his father was probably, and it just goes on and on and on. Once you get in, you're in. Prescott Bush was the CIA or involved with the so-called alien technology before his daddy Bush was in the CIA, and then George Bush Jr., and now Jeb Bush wants to be president. Family dynasties. And I learned this from somebody else. All these words I come up with are words I learned from other people. I don't want to claim all the credit here. But one of the key words I learned was a revolving dynasty. And I think we learned in the United States, we may not be under constitutional law. And apparently, if you look at the presidents when they speak and other officials, there is a gold fringe around the flag. Which, if you look it up, it says that means martial law, admiralty law. Which means when you go before a judge, you know, like let's say they institute martial law or what, anything even now, and they got the gold fringe, it's not constitutional law. And you're not entitled to a trial by jury. Under the martial law or the gold fringe around the flag, admiralty law, the judge can make a determination and have you beheaded on the spot. Like on a ship. Walk the plank. Look it up. Don't believe me. Oh my gosh, don't believe me. It's pretty important. So the Johnson Amendment, remember Johnson succeeded Kennedy when Kennedy died. Was murdered. Delaney Plaza, which is a Masonic, with a pyramid there, obelisk. So it was probably some kind of a Masonic, occult, Illuminati ritual. We did not get here overnight. Attacks of religious freedoms and the speech of Christians in America did not just appear in the last several years. The attempted muzzling of Christian churches and religious groups has gradually increased since the pivotal law was passed by a shrewd politician, to intimidate people of faith. The repercussions have been devastating. The 1954, Kennedy was killed in 1963. Johnson Amendment passed by Congress stated that non-profits, read Christian churches and organizations, could not speak in favor of any political candidate. Now, let me see if I got this straight. Johnson and Reagan and Bush and Kissinger and all these people were at the Bohemian Grove tossing a baby into a fire. Having a secret religion of one world Lucifer satanic thing, ruling our world, but they want to take Christianity out of people's reality. Alright, was this even constitutional? This key but forgotten event paved the way. This was this 1954 Johnson Amendment for the increased squelching of free speech, and because of the confusion and misinformation about the law, many religious leaders have been unnecessarily censored for decades. The following is an excerpt from the chapter, Separation of Christianity and State, in the book, The Cost of Our Silence. It says separation of Christianity and state. It doesn't say separation of Luciferic, satanic, United Nations, occult meditation room, Zionism, Jesuit, Kabbalah, and state, because they do control the state. And their religion, like I said, are the opposite of the 10 Commandments. So where the commandment number 6 says, do not kill, their religion is to murder and mayhem. 8 commandments says, do not steal. They're stealing people's natural resources, oil, and the American citizens, like Netanyahu said over and over since they created the Federal Reserve in 1913, which was a foreign entity that owns the Federal Reserve that loans money to our government to do their bidding, raising the bill up and saying the American people owe it. All right. Texas Democrat Lyndon B. Johnson was a powerful politician running for re-election as senator, but 2 anti-communist tax-exempt groups were opposing him and passing out literature during the campaign. He contacted the IRS and found the group's activity was legal, so he sought other options to fight them. Johnson shrewdly appeared on the Senate floor on July 2, 1954, and offered his amendment to a pending massive tax code overhaul bill. The bill was supposed to modernize the tax code. Records indicate an absence of committee hearings on the amendment. No legislative analysis took place to examine the effect of the bill, and the amendment would have, particularly on churches and religious organizations. The amendment was simply created to protect Johnson. The Johnson Amendment was passed by Congress as an amendment to Section 501 of the Federal Tax Code, staffing entities, stating entities that are exempt from federal tax income cannot participate in or intervene in, including publishing, distributing, or statements of political campaign on behalf or of opposition to any candidate for public office. So when George Bush said the New World Order was coming, and that the rule of law would rule over chaos and anarchy that they cause, they can make any law they want in secret. They can make a law that if you speak against unpatriotically about your government, that you can be beheaded. They can make a law like that. And in the past, there have been laws like that. It seems like that's what's coming in our near future. The left uses this to bully Christian pastors and groups with threats of losing their nonprofit status. Like I said, I wanted to be brief here. I could read it all. Look it up. There's a couple comments here I'll read. If you have signed up for a nonprofit status, then you have agreed to give up your free speech in return for money. Alright. This is why hell exists. A people that presume themselves above the law of the land that Almighty God gave to man, it cannot and will not be rebuked or cajoled, but rather they who dare stand in the seat of the law and do not take into account of the law that the Almighty God gave to mankind will find themselves a citizen in hell and will sink the sad drug for eternity. Whatever it means here. Alright, another one here that I found. A similar theme here. The court bans life license plate as patently offensive. Shocking ruling. Craziness on May 28th by BizPac Review, because supporting life is so controversial. So court bans choose life license plate as patently offensive. So if you have a license plate that please don't kill your child, apparently somebody's offended by that. And the court rules that it's patently offensive. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals in Manhattan ruled last week that choose life license plate are patently offensive. Now remember, these judges and lawyers and lots of people are Masons worshiping Lucifer and that religion, and some of them are probably don't take the Lucifer worship so seriously, but they do work for the evil agenda of the New World Order. Taking it a step further, the appeals court overturned a lower court ruling saying New York had the right to ban the specialty plates based on the Department of Motor Vehicles policy designed to prevent road rage, according to the Daily Caller. So, I guess to prevent anybody from having hate speech, if you disagree with gay marriage or the new Lucifer religion, you'll be called a hater. Probably if you declare yourself a Christian, you'll be an insurgent or a terrorist. God forbid you call on God to help you. The atheists and the Satanists and the Luciferians probably wouldn't like you to do that, because supporting life is so controversial. Alliance Defending Freedom Senior Legal Counsel Jeremy Tedesco said the court denied free speech in favoring of government censorship. Pro-adoption organizations should have the same speech rights as any other organization, Tedesco said. The state has wrongly given away speech discrimination against our client for more than 10 years. And you got a couple comments here. So who's it offensive to? A murderer? And another guy here says, the modern day Sodom and Gomorrah, what else would you expect? The judge is patently offensive, one guy says. How about choose death? Would that be patently offensive? Probably not. Sorry, but the court problems with choose life has nothing to do with abortion or just babies. It has a problem to do with the U.S. and probably the world depopulation program, that we're still here. This is so hilarious. You want to ban all kinds of speech from gays and liberals, but the minute someone infringes on your rights, you go nuts. I don't think anybody's been banning the speech on gays and liberals. That's why we're probably in the place we are now. There's another guy who says, who is banning gay speech? Obama is giving speeches all the time. During his inauguration speech when he was re-elected, he said his two top priorities was gay marriage and removing the guns. One guy here says, what planet are you living on? Gay and liberal free speech seems to be some of the only free speech allowed, especially if it's normal liberal hate speech. And the guy, well, we got that point across. Gets a little more scarier now. RFID research further moves towards implementing chips in humans. So if you pay attention to all this Freemasonic and Satanism stuff I'm doing, and then the book reviews and the people who run our country, with these secret mystery school religious things, you will see there seems to be a bad day coming, and they want to monitor everybody and enslave everybody that's probably not of the Zionism Jewish faith, which a lot of good Jews are fighting. If you look up Zionism images, or read Rabbi Marvin Antelman, or PhD author Henry Macau in Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World, you will see a lot of God-fearing Jewish people are just as concerned about the people who have turned towards Lucifer religion, paganism, the Pharaoh religion, the religion of Caesar of Rome, and kings and queens, and of dominating the human race again, like slaves. Alright, for many years within the alternate media, have written about the danger to freedom posed by the implantable RFID chips, from chips implanted into pets, to chips used in humans to monitor their health. Society has slowly been conditioned to accept implanted microchips as a useful science-based tool. And with all the propaganda I see on TV and everybody else, not going to the churches, nobody knows about the 666 mark of the beast. Now with the funding from the National Science Foundation in collaboration with the National Research Foundation in Korea, researchers are attempting to create an implantable antenna for a long-term patient monitoring. So that's continuing to move forward, and there's a whole long document here. RFID research further moves towards implanting chips in humans. People might want to pay attention to that. It's not going to bode well for us. Now something else that's interesting here, I found the U.S. is still under martial law from the 1860s. Now we're going to look this up. I don't know if everything is true. Everything I say here I'm not necessarily believe in, but it's worth investigating. And it does seem that the United States has been infiltrated and taken over by the New World Order folks, which are the New Age, which were called the Communists, which are called forced socialism, and even the Pope is calling for a one-world religion. And when has the Vatican not wanting to dominate the world? So maybe they've all come together now on an agreement that it'll be Luciferic satanic world. Let's see what it says here. Is U.S. still under martial law from the 1860s? It says here, if you see the flag, it says here, with the gold fringe around it, this is not the lawful and constitutional flag of the United States of America. The U.S. Admiralty courts, Admiralty law like martial law, exist because the U.S. is still under martial law from the 1860s. And when you see the president speak, you'll see the gold fringe. And I've had threats in my comments when I write on this on press releases, when I see a speech from the president and I make a comment that, Whoa, 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 that's a martial law flag. People have made death threats to me. Said I'm not going to be alive tomorrow if I don't shut up. Crazy. Abraham Lincoln declared martial law during the Civil War in 1861 to 1865. So we're talking 140, 50 years ago, not very long. Martial law has not been lifted yet from his declaration of martial law over 100 years ago. Anytime U.S. corporate entities in power want to do something that is illegal under the Constitution, they simply go ahead with it under the principle of the martial law declared by Lincoln. This is how the U.S. presidential election orders are presented. They're executive orders. That's why the President Obama and President Bush could just issue executive orders, maybe, based on martial law that has not been lifted. This is also referred to as admiralty law. The function of the U.S. judicial system, as it currently stands, is to protect Washington, D.C. So under admiralty law, if we're still under that, martial law, the Supreme Court, senators, the representatives, under that situation, they're supposed to protect the executive branch instead of protecting the people under martial law versus constitutional law. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm reading this. So anytime a U.S. corporate entity in power wants to do something that is illegal under the Constitution, they simply go ahead with it under the principle of the martial law declared by Lincoln. This is how U.S. presidential executive orders are presented. They're executive orders based on martial law that has not been lifted. This is also referred to as admiralty law. The function of the U.S. judicial system, as it currently stands, is to protect the Washington, D.C. private corporation. So Washington, D.C., we know, is a sovereign area unto its own, and is a private corporation like the Federal Reserve. So it's not under the constitutional law, so they say, from exposure so they're supposed to protect Washington, D.C. versus protecting the people. This private corporation is constitutionally illegal. The U.S. and the USA are separate legal entities. The constitutional USA is based on common law, not admiralty law. There is no president of the USA in existence at present. American governance has been hijacked by the Washington, D.C. private corporation, whose chief executive is Barack Obama, controlled from London by European monetary interests, which we call the banksters, the Illuminati, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Chases, Morgans. We all know this. Leaders of the Masonic lodges and the Jesuits and the Zionists, like Prime Minister Sharon of Israel said, "Don't worry about the USA, we control the USA." And Benjamin Netanyahu at Fink's Bar says they hate the United States. It's a golden calf to be fleeced again and again, and they're going to make it into a third world nation and sell it off piece by piece. In another press release yesterday, it says that China owns the USA. Who controls China? The Masonic lodges. Who controls them? The Illuminati. Who controls them? In cahoots with the Zionists. The Illuminati, Rothschild, created Israel with the Balfour Agreement during World War I. Attempted. Lord, Lord. Go on here. American governance has been hijacked by the Washington, D.C. private corporation, whose chief executive is Barack Obama. They want to microchip us. They want to shut down Christianity. They want to take away license plates to save life. So look this conversation up, because there's much more here that I want to read on this, nor do you probably want to have this video be too long. And here's another one. Obama ordered CIA to train ISIS jihadists, declassified documents. So if Washington, D.C. is a private corporation and Obama is the current CEO, because we know presidents aren't elected, they are selected. We know when you vote, you don't actually vote for a president. The Electoral College actually selects it. And the decision has been made beforehand. I think Obama had to meet with the Rothschilds or Rockefellers before he was allowed to run. And the CEO of the corporation, of course, do what the stockholders tell them, and the stockholders of the USA Corporation are the Illuminati, the Zionists, the Jesuits, the occultists, and all this other Satanists in the world, Kabbalah. So Obama ordered CIA to train ISIS jihadists, declassified documents. Alright, U.S. intelligence documents released to a government watchdog confirms the suspicions that the United States and some of its so-called coalition partners had actually facilitated the rise of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria called ISIS. And of course ISIS is the name for the wife of Osiris, who's the father of Horus, the all-seeing eye that's on the U.S. dollar bill. They're playing games with us with these names. As an effective adversary against the government of the Syrian dictator, President Bashar Assad, so they claimed Assad was gassing his own people. That proved to be false. Then the Benghazi guy where Stevens got killed, where they allowed the rebels to take a whole warehouse full of weapons to send them over to attack Syria. All kinds of behind-the-scenes nasty goings-on. In addition, ISIS members were initially trained by members of and contractors. Let's just say all this stuff going on in the Middle East that they say is one party is actually paid for mercenaries on behalf of the New World Order folks, to make it simple. Contractors of the Central Intelligence Agency at facilities in Jordan in 2012. The original goal was to weaken the Syrian government, which had engaged in war crimes against their own people, according to a number of reports on Sunday. And where were the weapons of mass destruction from Saddam Hussein? And who did 9/11? Who overthrew the illegitimate government in the Ukraine? Who sponsored that? All the governments in the Middle East, Egypt, Libya, Gaddafi dragged through the streets. And all these countries are much worse off now. Iraq, they're still murdering people. Afghanistan, Tunisia, Yemen, all the countries. And who's growing? Israel in the background. And what does Zionism mean? Ruling the world from Mount Zion, where Jerusalem and Tel Aviv will be the main financial and political rulership of the world. And apparently the Israel occupation of the UK and the Israel occupation of the USA has been going on for quite a while. And most of the citizens are none the wiser. I learned that term, Israeli occupation, from listening to the Reese talk show on alternate radio, talking to Tim Rifat. Just look it up, Reese and Tim Rifat, R-I-F-A-T, who was a remote viewer in previous videos of mine, working for the government, leaving his body in a trance, which we will get more into that stuff. And then he got out of the government employment and started writing books on remote viewing, which they wouldn't allow to be published in the United States. So much information. One of the Defense Intelligence Agency's DIA documents declared that President Barack Obama and his counterparts within the coalition considered the establishment of a Salafist organization in eastern Syria in order to further downfall the Assad regime. And this is exactly what the supporting powers to the Syrian opposition want in order to isolate the Syrian regime, said the DIA report, which has been formally classified until its release. Salafists are radical Sunnis. So these are paid-for people now, mercenaries, let's call it what it is, guerrilla fighters, have no care for any religion or anybody else, just money, like a hitman, in opposition to the Syrian regime. Radical Sunnis, an offshoot of the Saudi's Wahhabi sect. The contents of that document had been promulgated by the Obama administration to the U.S. Central Command, Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, the Document for Homeland Security, DHS, and its directorates, as well as the State Department and many other related agencies. So go look that up. Obama ordered CIA to train ISIS jihadists. And I suspect most people know about the CIA creating the Al-Qaeda to fight the Russians on the Afghan war. Alright, you got a couple comments here. One guy, Dan, writes, I am sure we consider many things. We are at war. The U.S. history is littered with examples of U.S. arming the enemy of our enemy just to see them turn around and use their skills on us. This is how you get perpetual war. And I think it's all a big New World Order organized from the top of the pyramid. The 13 families of the Illuminati, the henchmen of the Zionism, the Jesuits, and the Black Pope. And the new Pope now is a Jesuit. Go look up Black Pope and Jesuits. It's not a good thing we have a Jesuit Pope, maybe. I grew up Catholic. Mongoose says, I know that. The point is that what is the far right wing has been saying. Well, ever since Obama got into office, right? And then declaring himself president for life. And you believe the same idiots would want to sell you these conspiracy theories. Wasn't it George Bush who said he wishes he was a king so he didn't have to consult the people in the Senate and the House of Representatives? Alright, so there you have it. Some interesting things to concern ourselves with. Acknowledging who seems to be running the world. These people from these high society secret mystery schools that seem to be doing satanic rituals on TV programs, football halftime shows, Olympic openings and Grammys and all this stuff right in front of everybody's face. 911 incidences, Sandy Hook, Batman movie shootings, now Texas, motorcycle gang shootings and politicalizing it. Maybe a couple guys. I talked to a buddy of mine who lives in Santa Fe who has a Harley, and I used to have a Harley. And he says there was a couple guys who probably got in a fight and they started shooting. It happens. Is that what it was, or was it something more nefarious? In Waco again. There's the government using it to perpetuate the gun laws so that they can disarm the people. Then there's claiming they're thinking, in the news, not me, that Chicago might be nuked, or New York might be nuked, or Lindsey Graham said Charleston might be nuked. Doing something to, again, declare martial law and take away the guns. Apparently there's some nefarious forces out there who want to bring about this evil day upon America and we the people and the world. Europe is not faring well. They're going under a lot of distress, the citizens. South Korea, they got Sears. You can look on the internet, SARS, and they got the mask on. Everybody walking around not wanting to get it. United States, we got bird flu, 30 million turkeys and chickens, and the egg market's going through the floor. Pacific is killing all the fish, and their sky is spraying us with chemicals and HAARP systems and all this craziness. And we know from reading that material that I went over that they want a new world order, and some Christ entity is going to come here, and the people are going to have to work hard and suffer while the Israeli, Zionist, Jewish people will be in charge of everything. I guess they want you to love your slavery when they do it, those who they let live. So it all seems. Thank you for watching my video. Leave a comment. You don't have to be crazy and nasty. If you have any suggestions, you point out things that are false. I'd be happy to admit it, look at it, look it up. If you want to send me some information that's I don't know, that's probably relative to all this, send it to me in the comment section. Give me a thumbs up and wake up and see what's going on in our world, because what you do and I do, we might be able to save our world. But if we do nothing, I think we might be in big trouble. Rick Miracle reporting.